Good day, folks. This is John Kogan. I'm the CEO of Performative, the online community for corporate finance, accounting, treasury, and related professionals. I would like to welcome everyone to today's webinar, which is a technology demo, how Host Analytics streamlines budgeting, planning, and financial reporting processes. Host Analytics' complete online application suite gives executives full visibility into business performance, allowing them to make more confident decisions. Finance and accounting teams free up time wasted on collecting data from spreadsheets and transition systems because Host Analytics streamlines and automates fragmented financial and operational processes such as budgeting, planning, and forecasting, financial and management reporting and disclosure, including XBRL, financial consolidation and close, strategy management, operational and transaction analytics and dashboarding, and external drivers. A few items before we get started today. First off, obviously, thanks to Host Analytics for sponsoring today's event, and I'm looking forward to looking inside their system and getting a good look at how it works. Next up, a quick welcome to Performative. To those of you who are new to Performative, we're the largest and fastest growing online resource for senior level corporate finance, treasury, accounting, and related professionals. It's a unique platform where folks come online, and it's essentially peer-to-peer sharing, plus other information that Performative brings to bear to help answer your professional questions. And it's all completely free and noise-free. There are no ads. There's no fee to join. There's no selling or self-promotion allowed on the site. It's a wonderful resource for professionals. Please check it out at performative.com if you haven't already. Couple notes on today's events. A link to today's presentation, including a video of this webinar, will be sent out to all attendees within 24 hours of the event and will be posted at performative.com/resources. We'd like to encourage you to ask questions during today's event. We will be going through a few slides, an overview of Host Analytics and the solutions, and then a demo. And then the last portion of this morning's webinar will be Q&A. So please feel free to ask questions at any point in time, and we will do our best to get to your questions at the Q&A portion of the event. Finally, you will be asked to take a short survey at the end of today's event. We do ask that you give us just 60 seconds of your time. It's very short and sweet. Plus, we make it very easy there if you want to connect with today's speaker. It's just a click of a button, and we'll be happy to introduce you to him via email. So that makes it very simple and quick, and we greatly appreciate your feedback. So we would appreciate you taking just a few moments to take that survey at the end of today's webinar. And without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and introduce Rob Frasconi, who's a solution consultant with Host Analytics. Rob brings over 14 years of experience in business software, primarily in the enterprise resource planning space, to Host Analytics. Rob comes to Host Analytics from Lawson Software, where he was a solution consultant in Lawson's public sector group. During his career, Rob has served in a variety of finance roles and is also an expert in software revenue recognition. Rob began his career in public accounting and is a CPA and holds an MBA in finance. And with that, Rob, please take it away.
I will. Thanks, John. I appreciate that introduction. As John said, my name is Rob Frasconi. I am a solution consultant with Host Analytics, and what that means to all of you is that, coupled with the finance experience that I have, over 18 years in both public and corporate accounting and in various roles, throughout FP&A, corporate accounting, revenue recognition, really kind of spanned the breadth of disciplines. I also have a very strong functional software background, and what my role is to help customers and prospects understand what their requirements are and how our product set, our solution set, corporate performance management can help them improve their performance and streamline their processes to ultimately help their bottom line. So the majority of today's event is going to be a software demonstration, so we will quickly get into that, and we'll go pretty high level through pretty much all the software. And as I said before, we are a full corporate performance management suite. we're actually the only SaaS-based, full CPM suite that's out there right now. So, some vendors will stop at, budgeting and planning and reporting, and, we'll add into that, full range of analytics, scorecarding, as well as a fully functional consolidation suite. And we'll cover that during the software demonstration. So, as you can see from looking at the slides, as to the functional areas that we cover. So, cloud SaaS delivery model. So, low total cost of ownership, very little to no IT involvement, and for better or for worse, what that means is that you can access the software. Your users can access the software from anywhere in the world, provided they have access to the internet and are set up in the system with a username and password. So it's true access from anywhere. And the downside of that is we all work all the time now. I think that's the reality. The great thing about it is that we have customers who, within 2 weeks after activation, we don't even call it implementation because it's a little more than setting a customer up and flipping a switch. They're in the system, importing or interfacing actuals into our system, and they're creating reports before our services people even get involved to create budget templates. So I mean, that's the speed of a SaaS model. So I wanted to make sure that that's something that we talked about, that you understood. And world-class support and services. And most of our support we call technical support, but it's really functional support. And our support staff is staffed by individuals who are former accountants, recovering accountants, if you will, former finance professionals who have deep functional backgrounds, because that's what most of those tickets or calls are really about. They're not about we got to go through an upgrade process and I've got to move all this data, or the server's down, or something technically is not working. It's more about I want to try doing this. Give me some ideas or help me understand what the best way is to do it in your software. And just we are a I think I didn't say this before, but we are a 12-year-old business. We were founded in the year 2000. So right after a lot of software companies were going out of business, our founders decided we would start that year. So we've been around for 12 years, and we've got customers that literally span the globe. And this slide just gives you kind of an understanding of a little flavor of some of the customers we have in the different verticals that we serve, all the way from CPG to technology companies. So as I said before, the Host Analytics CPM solution is the only complete corporate performance management suite in the cloud. There is no other right now. Excuse me. And we take kind of a modular approach to our how we design the software and how we price the software. So it's not an all-in scenario where you have to buy everything and sign up for everything. You can grow with the software can grow with you as your business changes, as it becomes more complex. It's very typical for our customers to start out at budgeting and planning and forecast and reporting only, and then they start acquiring businesses. These businesses have multiple ERP systems all over the world, and then they need a consolidation tool because they may never get to a single ERP system, and if they do, it could be years down the road. So I mean, definitely we're designed to grow with you as you grow, and it runs the gamut from our budgeting and forecasting, both for OpEx and revenue, capital planning, down to building in collaboration tools through workflow throughout our system. So gone are the days of sending out Excel spreadsheets and not having any idea where individuals and department managers are at in completing those spreadsheets. We give you some pretty nice tools to really see where everyone is at in that process, including multi-level approval, if that's something you're interested in as well. Of course, none of that is good unless you have powerful analysis and reporting tools. So we use a design where each customer has a SQL Server database along with a multi-dimensional database, and that's really where the power is for analysis. So you can set up your system using the segments and the dimensions that you want, whether or not it's set up that same way in your general ledger system, your ERP system, and really do some powerful reporting and analysis, including ad hoc reporting, dashboards, and scorecards, if balanced scorecard is something that you're interested in as well. And like I said before, we're in the cloud. So anytime, anywhere access and monthly releases, your IT department does not have to worry about those anymore. talked about budgeting and planning and forecasting. I talked about the ability to grow. Consolidation tool is something we see our customers growing into, and that's typically when you expand very quickly. You have disparate ERP systems, or you just need to do things like intercompany eliminations. You've got minority interest that you have to deal with. You're dealing in multiple currencies, and you have to do currency translations. And on top of that, our disclosure management tools. And we've got something that's fairly unique to the industry in our executive report manager, where you think about those processes for building budget books or board books or SEC reports, your 10Q and 10K, any process like that where you're mirroring up financial data from reports, other systems, scorecards, the dashboards, et cetera, with text narrative type information. I know my background, my history, I remember even at large companies using Word and Excel to do that. And that's not a great tool, or not a great set of tools or process to take or approach to take to do that, especially when you're in an environment where we had a lot of post-close adjustments. You're constantly updating those reports. It took hours on end to update for every iteration. And we help you speed that process up by being able to produce all that within Host Analytics. You can take all of your reports. You can take third-party documents, Excel, Word, image files, and embed all of your text and your narrative, right in our tool, and then create a Word document from that, and even a PowerPoint document from that. And our Decision Hub technology just allows you to bring in, through sources, through partners that we have, through Morningstar and others, and Edgar Online, KPIs, benchmarks, public company information as well. You can bring that into the system and just provide a more process efficient system, as well as just give you visibility into your business, be able to speed up that process and be able to help you measure your business against other businesses in your field in an automated fashion. And the last thing I want to talk about here is just our new reporting analytics. So on top of everything that we have, we do have some report analytics functionality that we've just rolled out recently, and it can look to CRM data, operational data, finance data that's coming through the system, and your workforce planning data as well that we'll talk about in a minute that you're going to be managing for a forecast basis within Host Analytics. And with that, we are going to start the demonstration. So right now you should all be seeing a login screen. And I'm showing you a login screen on purpose because I really want to drive home the benefits of being able to access the software from anywhere at any time. So I'm just going to go ahead and log into the system, just using a username and password. So I'm logged into the system, and now I'm just excuse me, just moving something out of the way here. I want to just give you a brief understanding and brief kind of lay of the land of how our software, what it looks like. For a lot of you, you've probably never seen it before, and what is an end user going to see? So we'll split the demonstration up in between two areas, and one is kind of an end user view, and one is more of a super user finance view. And given the time, we'll have to stay pretty high level, but it'll give you a good flavor of what it's going to look like depending on what type of user you are. So up at the top left here, this will be the same for both views. We just have access to our application. So our budgeting and planning application, a reporting engine, and then some maintenance items that's typically controlled by super users in FP&A and finance. Our menu items over at the right, we have our home screen, and what you saw when I logged in is what I designated as my home screen. It's just where we're going to default whenever either I hit the button or I log in. Context-sensitive help, which is important because it'll when you click on this button, it will default you to the location of the online help manual based on where you are in the software. So that's important to get your answers quickly. That's not enough. Our really functional support staffed by former finance professionals and accountants, and then our user community if you want to get more involved and share stories and best practices. From a scenario perspective, I can hit the drop down here. All you will see is one scenario because I'm controlling what this user has access to. In this case, this user is only going to be involved in the annual budget process. So that's the only scenario they're going to see. From a host analytics terminology perspective, a scenario is really just the version of a budget, a version of a forecast, rolling forecast. That just give you an idea of really what that is. And you can attach comments to those scenarios for guidance. You can can attach attachments to those scenarios as well. And we basically divided up our budgeting and planning interface into 3 different panes. Our hierarchy, which is no more than where do you plan to budget. And that could mirror your segments in your GL system. It could not. It's really up to you as to where you want to budget, and really determines the roll up too of how the numbers are going to roll up. From when you budget at the lowest level here. We use a template approach in Host Analytics to collect budget data. So what you see are just 2 different templates, and we'll get into those in a minute. And I can interact with those templates by just using some of the functions over here on the right. So in this case, I can input into a template, I can view it, and I can also have some user kind of workflow and determine whether or not I think it's complete and ready for the next step, which is forwarding for approval. So let's actually go in and take a look at a very simple template. Now this is designed to be an end user template. So you can see, first thing you'll see is you've got similar column structures and row structures that Excel has. On the X-axis for this particular one, I've got sales reps, and they're actually not entering in amounts in any kind of a currency. They're actually entering in units that they plan to sell. So why is this all important? Well, first of all, you're looking at basically the Excel for the web technology. So we license the Microsoft Excel's web version in our software, and so it means a lot of things. Number one, it means you've got the same kind of functionality you have in Excel and your users are used to, especially for basic data entry. I can go in and add them out right here if I want to. I can use copy and paste functions on my keyboard if I want to. Oh, a little too far there to the right. So just use that basic Control-C, Control-V. I can use the mouse if I want to. So it's going to have a look and feel of Excel because it is Excel for the web. Most importantly, it's going to give me some true Excel syntax. And when we log in as more of a super user, I'll show you some more things that you can do. So from our vantage point, it's really the best of both worlds. It's the look and feel and an action of Excel, so you don't have to learn anything new, and not all vendors can say that. So it gives you, 2 main things. Your end users can use it easily because they're used to it. They're probably using it right now. And B, your super users can, put together very complex formulas just how they do right now because it's Excel-based. But those things like HLOOKUPs and VLOOKUPs, they basically become obsolete because this is built in an enterprise system. This sits on top of a database. So these numbers down right here, these total bookings numbers, I'm actually mapping to a location in the database, based on my segments or my dimensions. So I'm determining all of that. It's right into the database. I don't need to do HLOOKUPs and VLOOKUPs. That's just not necessary anymore. So it's pretty basic look and feel, and you can customize or personalize these views, and if you want to, and take out what the header descriptions and the row descriptions to make it look how you want to look. One key takeaway from this is that our activation team works with customers to develop these and personalize these templates because most customers already have a pretty definite view of what they want. So we work with them to implement best practices along with what their business true needs are. So out of the box you get kind of a blank slate. We help you develop it, and you keep those and you roll those out to the rest of your business. So I'm going to go ahead and jump out of here. I'm not going to save that, but what I am going to do is I'm going to mark it complete. It's just kind of my user level workflow. Gives me a little indication that it's complete. When you look over here and see the red dots, when I look down, I can tell that everything here is still work in process. So here's where some of our workflow comes into play, and just our indicators so we know where we are. So I'm going to go ahead and forward this for approval. You notice down below, there's a lot of comments down there, and that's because I've sent this one rejected many, many times. So many times as that happens, we store all those approvals or rejections in the database so you do have a full audit log. So you can tell now that I've got a forwarded part of my budget, my only part of the budget because I don't have much access. Looking down here, I can see that. So I'm done for now. So I'm actually going to close out of here, and now I'm logged in as a super user. So I could have just put in my username and password and logged in, but I decided to, in the interest of time, just log in ahead of time to have a view here. So point out some differences between this and what you saw before. So I have more access to more applications. Now I have access to consolidation. how the administrator sets you up, and typically administrator is a finance super user because you don't need a technical background to be able to administer the application, and a lot of that's because it's cloud slash SaaS based. Excuse me. A couple of comments on scorecards, and then we'll move along. Two things really to focus on, and that's if data visualization is really all that you need, we definitely fully support that. And I think the two graphs on the right are a good example of that. If a balanced scorecard is something that you're thinking about, or you have implemented, or you are implementing, we fully support that as well. And these two KPIs on the left, really give a good indication of that. So we have a KPI for operating expenses, and I know that we've got some issues because if you think about the stoplight, red, yellow, green, this is all in red. So for every one of these months here, I know that my actual budget for OpEx is over. So I can click on this link right here and get into a little bit lower, a little higher level, or lower level of detail, granular level of detail, and start doing some analysis, by segment, and try to get down to where are my issues, so I know who to call from there. So really helps you manage by exceptions, and really is the only way to measure a process or an initiative, by being able to set up those KPI targets, set up tolerances, and then use the dashboarding capability and the scorecarding capability within Host Analytics to measure that. So from here, let's take a look at our budgeting and planning area of the software. So you're going to notice that you see a lot more information. That's by design, because we have access with this particular user to much more information. So I can see every area in the entity, in the company, all the way up to the consolidated level, and who's budgeting for what, and what from a workflow perspective, where's everybody at? So I can see that this particular department's already done. We've got some that's completed, but excuse me, this one's approved. This one is approved and completed, and here's the one that I sent for approval before. So I can actually go ahead in there, and I like to send this thing back a lot. It just helps us out a lot. So try again, because I didn't really like the numbers that I saw first. So I'm going to go ahead and send that back. It's going to log that in the history, so I'll have a good audit log of that if I ever need to. So we talked a little bit about templates before. You can see we have many, many more templates now. So just many, many more ways to gather HR data, to gather OpEx data, and revenue data, essentially. So let's actually go into a little more sophisticated templates and talk through that a bit. Okay, so a little bit different view than you saw before. So we basically have our operating expenses down on this particular axis, and these are down to essentially the account level with some roll-ups. And you'll notice that for these roll-ups, I can't change any of this. If I go from cell to cell in these formulas, these are locked down. So it's not just in Excel. You have all that syntax and functionality that Excel gives you, but you have the security of an enterprise system. So you don't have to worry about all those things that break in Excel and everything about Excel that doesn't really make it good. So everything in yellow, just like the other view that you saw before, means the user can actually enter information. So I can put in an amount right here. I can also create a formula in another cell. This is really determined during the design process. What do you want the users to be able to enter, and what is just going to be part of the baseline budget, if you will, things that you're going to calculate either with drivers or bring in compensation information down here from what their head count looks like, because you don't want them to see the detail. But in this case, we've got a lot of information that's locked down, but we do have some cells that we can actually make changes to. So we talked about the Excel syntax. This is an Excel formula, so I can just to highlight that. So I can create virtually any Excel formula that I could actually, we've never seen an Excel formula that we couldn't recreate in Host Analytics. So everything you can do in Excel from a formula perspective, you can do in Host Analytics. I just did some basic copying in there. And a couple of keys here. As I'm entering in information, you can see that these other formulas, these sum formulas, are updating. When I hit the Save button, I'm actually updating that database. Not all vendors can say that either. So true Excel syntax, nothing really to learn on your end. And it's something you really should explore, because the template approach is pretty common. A lot of vendors have Excel matrix-like templates, but really they're not all the same. So it's really something that you should focus on. Other thing you may notice is that we've got some actuals for 2009. We've got a section we call compare scenarios here, and what that's giving us is two different things. For this particular template, we put in two different things in these columns. Number one, we've got top-down guidance. So not only can you budget and plan from a bottoms-up approach, which is pretty traditional, but you're going to have instances and situations where executive management, when you want to put together a forecast, but at a high level. So we let you create top-down models really at any level in your dimensional structure or your segment. So you can do it at the company level, the department level. You don't have to get down to that account level to do that. In this case, it's really just a guide for this particular template. I'm also bringing in some actuals, and then when I click on the hyperlink, I'm exposing, all of those months that make up 2009 actuals, with those numbers in there. And that's important when you think about things like trending. So for this line for samples, I can just do some trending by putting in an increase. It's going to be a year-over-year trend, and it's automatically going to calculate for each one of those fields, each one of those columns, based on what those actuals were for 2009. So I think that's pretty cool. I mean, that's a pretty good time saver, I think. Your eyes may have been drawn over into this column. You're scratching your head thinking, what is all this stuff? Well, I mean, first of all, we've got a couple of different things going on here. Anything in green you see means that there's something populated within there. So the L is really just standing for line item detail. And what that gives you, I'll just open this up quickly, it gives you the ability to budget and plan below the line. So this is the general account line right here, and this is really just the string. So these are all these segments that we were talking about before, all the different dimensions. Here we have a basic description. So here's that level, but that level is a summary of all this below the line detail. So this comes in handy when you think about variance analysis and you're trying to understand, okay, what made up that $14,000 100 number that I budgeted for February of 2010? Well, I know what it is. It's 3 trips to New York, or I'm sorry, it's a trip to New York for 3 people. So pretty handy, helps with a lot of different part of the planning and review process once the planning process is done. Just like at the scenario level, we can add notes, unlimited amounts of notes, and attachments too. So if you want to have some guidance, you have some other documents outside of host that you want to bring in for reference purposes for the planning process, you can do that as well. To move down through the templates, well, also one last thing, currency. If your business does do planning in multiple currencies, one good thing to know that this, just like the other template, when I log in as a user, I don't need to know what currency I'm planning is. It's all been predetermined, based on what company and what department and et cetera, what that string is for that particular budget template. So the user doesn't have to know what currency that you're in. As we just move down, I'll just talk briefly about the compensation item area. We kind of talked about this already. This is just summary data coming in from our workforce planning application, and I know that because of the RA. So if I click on, the RA stands for reference account, and what it really means is that we're taking in information, in this case, from company 2190, but more importantly, from the HR template, and that tells me it's our workforce planning template. So we're referencing that information in and letting, in this case, users see it. Now, this doesn't mean that users can see the detail by position, by open position, by employee. You decide who you want, whether or not you want to budget at that level, and you decide whether or not to let your department heads see that level of detail. But we can definitely bring it into a template and lock it down, to really kind of provide their kind of part of their baseline budget. And to a degree, the same with drivers. This is a simple example for travel expense drivers, but this could be used for a number of different things. And all this is really doing, again, the same reference account template. This is pulling in from another template at my standard cost for airfare, hotels, meals, and ground for my trips. So I can bring in a standard cost by month, have a summary if I want to, and then only force the user to put in a number of trips and and then calculate that travel and expense number. So just to give you some more control and accuracy over that process. So that is for our OpEx templates. I think from there I am going to move on So we're logged in as a super user. We've talked about entering in more sophisticated information into operating expenses templates. Let's get into workforce planning. So for many companies, this represents a very large proportion of their expenses, oftentimes 70 to 80%. So what Host has done is, based on research we've done and talking to our customers, is we built a purpose-built application, not to be redundant. And that's why when you look at it, it looks a little bit different than what you saw before. You're not personalizing what this template looks like. This has a fixed number of about 20 to 25 fields with very common information that you would really get out of your payroll system. And that's essentially how our customers use it. They take a feed from their payroll system to get started. They have all their employees, and they just interface information over when they need to, or just make adjustments within the system as well to move positions, from department to department. So we allow you to plan at a very detailed level. So let's actually go in and take a look at one of the records here. Okay, so now I'm in a detailed record for one employee. You'll notice that this particular employee has moved between two different positions. So I've captured that information. We track information and capture information in a tabular basis. So every one of these tabs we can get into and talk about. We capture pretty basic information from payroll system. Hire dates. We also capture position and end dates, and that's important when you have new open positions that you're going to plan for 6 months out, or you're going to have internal movement within your sales force. So basic position information captured on this tab. We can put employees into groups probably similar to what your payroll system already has, and that's important because that's going to help determine the assignment of these compensation items. And the compensation items is nothing more than the different types of pay that an employee group will have, and the different types of employer pay deductions that an employee or an employer group will have. So in this case, we have our list of available, and we have some that are assigned. And we already have the percentages and the formulas and the caps preloaded already, and that's pretty key. You don't have to create any of this. This has all been created for you. If you have unusual types of pay or unusual deductions, we'll just work with you to create those additional compensation items, and we'll build the logic in there for you. But the real takeaway is that you can plan at a very detailed level if you want to within Host Analytics with workforce management. Allocations. Many companies are allocating the cost of their labor across multiple departments. Here I've got the ability for down to every type of pay or type of employer pay deduction. I can just simply insert lines and do an allocation and change this 100% to 50%, 50%, whatever it is, down to the compensation level. So if you need to allocate at a detailed level, we can certainly accommodate that within Host Analytics. So that is workforce planning. Let's move on now to thinking about what are these big things that we're doing on a plan, and that's really just initiatives. So I'll talk to initiatives, and I think I'm looking at the clock here. I want to make sure we stay within the time allotted, but let's just talk a little bit about initiatives and the functionality that Host gives you. So these are essentially just large what-if type scenarios that come up, and what we allow you to do. It obviously here just shows up as another template, and it will for all the users. But we allow you to track revenues and expenses and plan for revenues, expenses, and capital purchases for each individual initiative, and then run it through an approval process so that you can really keep them out of the core plan. So if you're doing that all in Excel today, it's probably a big event to put them in. It's probably an even bigger event to pull them out when they don't get approved. So we automate that for you, let it sit on top of the plan, use a separate approval process, so that you can plan for those things, use a best practice for approvals, and know that it's not going to be a headache to kind of pull that out of your plan once you're done. So the last thing on the budgeting and planning side I want to talk to is really just rolling the forecast. So we've kind of gone through some of the basics of entering that budget data. So let's talk about rolling the forecast a little bit. And to do that, I'm just going to select another scenario. And this is just a forecast scenario that I have created already, and just give you an idea of what that template's going to look like when you create that forecast. So this is a simple scenario where we're just updating January actuals within the template itself, based on those actuals that you've loaded into the system. So January's actual, all the other months are forecast. We can go out a little bit further, and you can see that it's not limited to the end of the fiscal year. I can actually go on much far beyond that if I want to. So this process is simply just a matter of creating a new scenario in the system, which takes about 5 minutes to do. But it gives you the benefit of, applying those new scenarios for your rolling forecast to all the different templates that you've already created. So you can quickly get in here, start your reforecasting process, push it out to those involved in the planning process, and move on. So it's not a matter of days to get your system to a point where you can start to roll. You can really do it in a matter of minutes. It really doesn't take that long at all. So we've got a bunch of data. Let's talk just briefly about consolidations, and then we'll just get into some quick reporting things that we can do. So consolidations, just another area in the software, another module, and just briefly. So we can consolidate at any level that you want to. We can also do interim consolidations as well. If you've got entities in Europe that could consolidate it to another company, and then consolidate it again at the highest level in your org structure, we can certainly do that. But let's just take a quick walkthrough here. We don't have a ton of time left. So standard parts of consolidation. If you've got eliminating entries that need to be made, you've got minority interest calculations that need to be done. One of the prime reasons most of our customers move to consolidations is to do all of that, but also to deal with all the different ERP systems that they have, that they've acquired through acquisition. So this gives you a way to suck all that data out of those ERP systems, either from a centralized point of view or a decentralized point of view. And you can do anything you should expect you can do with the consolidation tool. So if you want to do standard journal entries, you can do that. Recurring journal entries as well. Dynamic journals, which are really just calculated. So let's say you've got a royalty expense calculation that you have to book every month, based on net income. So you can set up these really recurring calculated entries to run every single month. We talked about partial ownership rules, reclassifications, even if it's just for balance sheet reclasses for reporting purposes, eliminations for intercompanies, and then being able to run the consolidation process right from the screen without bringing in any technical resources from IT. So we do offer a full service consolidation engine, so whatever your needs are, we can certainly accommodate that. But let's jump to reporting. It looks like we've got about 7 minutes left, and let's just talk briefly about some of the things we can do with reports, and we'll focus a lot on ad hoc reports today. First thing I notice is that we use a file cabinet structure, and the file cabinet structure, it's easy to make assumptions about it, but it's actually pretty important and pretty cool. And the reason I say that is if you think about how you get reports and content like this out to your users, think about how much you use email and how much you're sending these things all over the place and getting phone calls. If you don't have a discipline to use a document management system, and even if you did, and the company that I came from did, we had Documentum, we had 800 licenses to Documentum, and no one used it for this purpose because it wasn't really that easy to use. And most of those systems are kind of like that. So we just built content management within our reporting application. So the default is you create folders as you want to, create reports, you assign access to those folders and reports as you want, as you're the administrators of the application. And this is where they come to view those reports. So you can certainly email reports around still, but you definitely don't have to. So let's take a quick look at an ad hoc report just so you have an understanding of what it looks like and how they're built, what's the bones behind it. So you'll notice that there's not a lot of formatting here. We do allow you to pull in image files very easily, and I could easily change this one. But the idea here is getting that information, the 5 W's: who, what, where, why, when. How do you slice and dice that information to get the answers that you need? This is really what ad hoc reports will allow you to do. So in this case, we just have a product line actuals report, so by month. And all I'm doing here is just drilling down through the different parts of the segments. And this is just determined by what your segment hierarchy looks like, and can be multiple levels if you need it to be. In this case, it's just a couple of different levels. So I've got my actuals, and I can even drill into my actuals too that I'm bringing over from my ERP system, and that's what you're seeing right now, just actuals from the ERP system. And you can bring over as many as you want to because we do not charge for storage. You can even bring in image files if you want to drill to, let's say, a customer invoice or an AP invoice. So that's all fine and great. So, how do we build this? What are the building blocks for an ad hoc report? Well, these are the building blocks right here, and they're just dimensions or segments, within host analytics. So really, to illustrate this, it's probably best to just make a few changes. So let's just move a few things around. I'll move time to the page dimension, and then I'm just going to move, scenario down to the column, and I'm going to add a scenario. So I just double-clicked here. See, I got a checkbox, so there's already something selected. I've got actuals, but I want to bring in 2010 budget, and I want to move that up to. I'm just going to click OK and rerun that report. So now I've got budget to actual. I mean, I'm already at the top of my product line, but I can certainly drill down there as needed to get back to where I was. So I've got budget to actual just like that in a couple of different clicks. And I can also add some calculations to that. So I'm going to add a variance to this particular one. Just going to tell it where to go. I want it to be the right of column C to my actuals. I want it to be a variance. It could be any other one of these pre-configured calculations. And I want to just tell it, what am I going to compare? Well, I want to compare columns B and C. So click OK. Put it back in an HTML view, just a little bit prettier. I've added a quick calculation, to that report. So, very easy to get in there and slice and dice, and really get the information that you want to see. So, last thing I want to fast forward to is talk about executive reports and talk about those report books that you're putting together on a regular basis. So I'm going to do a couple of things here. I'm going to launch what I call kind of the bones for our executive reports. But I'm also going to go into, if I can do this here, run the WebEx, Microsoft Word, and where's my file? Oh, I don't have my file here. Well, let me back up for a second. I zigged when I should have zagged. I didn't have a file I wanted to see. So I'll walk you through this. This is what we call the Executive Report Manager. And as you can see down here, we've got a template here for a Word doc. So everything that we're configuring here and putting together as part of this report is going to be pushed out into a Word doc format. That's the document I was going to pull out. And this is really just the structure of what that document looks like. So in any report package, you typically have a table of contents. So I can name that. I can assign the due dates. I can assign it to an individual user within the system if I want to. And then I can move on to create the rest of my report. So in this case, I'm going to break it out by region. So Australia and New Zealand, Asia Pacific, North America. I've got 3 different regions I'm going to report on. I've got a different number of pieces of content. So I've got a business summary in text for Australia and New Zealand. And I'm controlling all that text right here. So I can copy and paste it in from Word one time and then manage it here, assign it to people, use the workflow to manage that process if you have more of a decentralized process. Of course, I can pull in financial reports that Host Analytics has created, as well as other documents, especially Word and Excel, into the file cabinet and then into the report itself. So just want to kind of give you an understanding of what Executive Report Manager can give you. And again, the output now is to, I'm going to go back here for a second. We will output to a Word document, and we can also output to a PowerPoint presentation as well. So it's a little bit different for PowerPoint. The terminology is a little bit different, but if you think about all those presentations that you put together at the end of the quarter, I think this can help that process quite a bit. You can centralize, all of your data and all your content from host and non-host sources, and then, produce that final product, for the board, for that presentation, and then just the report itself to send out to users. And finally, just wanted to end kind of on the home screen and just give you, a couple of very quick stories, because you've seen a lot of information. It's gone very, very fast because, there's a lot to cover. And in 40, 45 minutes, there's much more that I could show you at a much more detailed level. But just want to give you an understanding of, what deployment looks like. So since we are a SaaS-based solution, gone are the days where you sign a license agreement for a perpetual, licensed product and don't start your implementation for 3 months. We can turn you on very quickly. You can get in there and start, writing reports against your actuals that you bring in while we're creating the templates, creating that budgeting and planning process. And we've got customers as large as Groupon who went live within 4 weeks, They cut their close down from 3 days to 1 day. And a lot of that really just depends on the involvement from the prospect or from the customer. Internally, we eat our own dog food, so we use Host Analytics, for our corporate performance management needs. And, within 2 weeks of activation, our CFO, who demanded to do the implementation herself, was writing reports. So, I mean, you talk about time to value. It seems like kind of a hokey term sometimes. It doesn't really have any substance. I think there's a lot of substance there when you can say, hey, within 2 weeks of being turned on in the system, we can actually get in there and do some things and realize the value of that system. So just wanted to end on that. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to John.
Thank you very much, Rob. All right, so that was a great walkthrough, and yes, it's very difficult to cover that much territory that quickly, but I thought you did a great job. And what we'd like to do now is move into the Q&A area. So if you have questions, please feel free to ask them at this time, and we're just going to start firing away here, Rob. First off, Rob, are there pre-delivered templates and reports, or is everything customized during the implementation?
Well, I mean, first of all, I like to use the word personalized because I really think that's more of it's a more accurate term. And there's really there's a mix. When you think about, I mean, it's like you think about your financial statements. Everybody has an income statement. Everybody's going to collect operating expense data, but everyone's going to do it a little bit differently. So for those types of templates, our activation services people, will work with customers to use best practices, number one, from what we've seen or what they've seen in the field, over the years, plus, get it to the point where it can be personalized enough to look and feel like the customer wants to see it. So that's one example of a situation where we would customize or personalize. I mean, certainly with reports, we've got standard reports, but we typically start with a shell and then design those, or design, 1 or 2 of those, and then turn over that design process to the customer. Because it is that easy to learn the tool, and they can get value out of that by not having to pay for implementation or services to do that. But we do have some, straight up, pre-delivered templates. And one of those we talked about, and I showed you, and that was the workforce management. That is purpose-built, so that's out of the box. And capital planning, which we didn't talk about, that's also, pre-delivered and out of the box. So there's a good mix.
And how long does it, how long and how do people train themselves on the system? Is that something that happens in the weeks preceding turning their company on, and how long does it typically take to get, an average finance or accounting user reasonably trained and using the system?
That's a great question. Typically our implementations, or let's call them activations, run about 8 weeks. Now there's anomalies. There's some that go longer because there's much larger companies, and there's some that go quicker because they could also be larger companies, but they just have many more feet on the ground and resources to work on their end of the activation process. So it all typically starts off with the online training that we provide. So for every product, we have online training that customers can go to, and that kind of serves as the foundation to begin that activation process. So it's a mix of formal training through our online training, and also more of a train the trainer approach. To keep implementation costs down or activation costs down, we will typically propose a lot of involvement from the customer, and number one, and number two, really set that expectation that we'll help you build 1 or 2 templates, we'll help you build 1 or 2 reports, and we'll hold your hand through that process so you can really learn, because we all know that's the way you learn. And then from there, we're going to let you take it. And that has actually gone very well. Most customers are very receptive to that. So, I mean, it always takes time to learn a new system, but by the time you're done with an 8-week application, I think you've got some people in-house who are becoming experts already in the system.
Now, do customers work exclusively, with Host Analytics in these implementations, or do you guys have a network of partners who do implementations?
We have both. It's transitioned a lot, I think, over the years, from host providing all of the activation services, but we have more and more partners that we are signing up. So the answer to that is both. So you do have a choice.
Yep. Let's see. Is there a complete general ledger in the consolidation module?
Well, I'll try to answer that question as best I can, because I'm not sure exactly what this person the question is really driving at. So I guess let me answer it by this. I mean, you will set up a what we call a common chart of accounts in the system, and that will be used for forecasting and planning and budgeting, and used for the consolidation process itself. So based on that, we can do things like, if you've got different subsidiaries on different GL systems with different charts of accounts, we can go through a mapping process to take those unequal charts of accounts, or not identical charts of accounts, and map them to the common one in the system. And it's from there we'll be able to import that data from all those different subsidiaries in local currency, do that conversion. So at the end of the day, we are storing a trial balance in host analytics, definitely. So not sure if that 100% answers that question. Hopefully it's close.
Okay, great. What tools are available for, say, cash flow forecasting?
Well, we've got a couple of different tools. And, I mean, typically what I've seen is that customers will use both. So, number one, a cash flow template, which really, again, is just another template just like we saw. So, through the demonstration, I showed a very simple template for end users to enter in, units that are going to be sold, and we talked about a little bit more elaborate one around operating expenses. So, building a cash flow template is really that same exercise. So, depending on, and this varies between companies and industries, I've seen a lot of prospects who just use kind of a very formal indirect method of a cash flow statement. We'll build that out into a template and map that to the database. Reference those between or your income statement template, your balance sheet template, and your cash flow template, and just truly be able to go in the template to do your forecasting and analysis from a cash flow basis. And then typically we always create a report as well. So either way you want to do it, I think what I've seen so far has been both, but it could be either or, building it out through a template or just building a cash flow report using our reporting tools.
Gotcha. Let's talk about integration. A lot of the cool stuff in the system seems to be you can pull in actuals and run scenarios against them, and you can use them as baselines, et cetera. Can you talk a bit about the complexity of integration with ERP systems? How difficult, how easy? What are there pre-built connectors, or is that a customized process, et cetera?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and it always comes up, and it should come up. I would ask the same question if I was a prospect looking at a vendor. And it runs the gamut. Some of our very small customers use what we call data load rules, and what those are just, you're basically doing a mapping exercise through a wizard within the system and saving that. So you're mapping from any kind of flat file, text file, Excel file, whatever it is, but you're actually setting up a repeatable process to that, because you're mapping it and you're saving it. So then you're just exporting whatever format you get from your ERP system, your GL system, and then you're just running that data load process, and that's typically on a monthly basis. So I mean, if we had a graph, I would say the sophistication of the integration process will increase as the frequency of the data changes and the metadata changes, i.e. changing companies, accounts, departments, et cetera, within the GL change. So I mean, we'll go from very unsophisticated but very I guess process-oriented and efficient methods like data load rules to pre-built connector packs, which are really just pre-delivered integration, and that's for some of our major ERP partners, if you will, like the NetSuites of the world and some of the GP products, Intact. That gives you, a lot of bang for the buck, because all that stuff is everything that needs to be mapped is pretty much mapped, and you do get down to true like push button updates and things like that. For customers who want even a higher level of sophistication, if they already have an ETL process in place, we can accommodate that as well. But I would say in our customer base, there's still lots that are using just simply data load rules. And as more and more connector packs come online, that's been very popular too. So it just depends on your need, but we haven't seen a situation that we couldn't accommodate yet.
Okay. And you mentioned NetSuite and Intact and a couple of other systems. What about on the end of the spectrum, Oracle, SAP, and then on the smaller company side, QuickBooks?
On QuickBooks, I don't believe we have a connector pack, so I think typically our QuickBooks customers are using the data load rules. That's a great question. On the SAP and Oracle side, I believe we have connector packs, but I guess I'd be surprised that we don't, but I would have to double check that. So that's somewhat of an open item right now.
Okay. Can and how does the system handle multiple organizations?
Well, I guess that's kind of a broad question. From a consolidation point of view?
Well, actually, why don't we start with budgeting and planning? So are you able to budget and forecast in your multiple entities and then roll them up with the same sort of level of visibility as you have within the single entity?
Definitely. So what we were looking at before, we talked about this budget hierarchy, and that really just being the kind of the roadmap of where you want to budget. I mean, in that hierarchy, there was, a ultimate, highest level consolidated parent entity. There were other companies underneath that. There are divisions of those companies. So it's really just a method or a matter of setting up what we call the segment hierarchy. So I mean, literally, creating that metadata, which is just the companies that are involved, creating all those different segments. And then using our, we'll call it kind of like a wizard-like approach, just kind of dragging and dropping and determining, what the roll-up rules are. So which entities roll up to the other entities, whether or not we're adding up. You can do calculations in those segment roll-ups as well. That part is actually pretty straightforward. So we haven't seen anything we haven't been able to accommodate. So it's all built out through those rules that you would be considering through activation.
Okay. And then one last quick question, because we're getting right to the end of it here. Does the platform accommodate rolling forecasts?
Definitely. And what I showed before when we just kind of talked through the rolling the forecast process, there's a lot of terminology that's out there right now. That was basically a form of rolling forecast. I think the trend in finance right now and FP&A is, I think, moving away from an annual planning process. We certainly haven't seen it yet, but some companies are starting to adopt it, with the beyond budgeting roundtable and those types of things. But so the trend is continuous planning, really, expanding your forecast periods out to what you believe is the end of your business cycle, and dropping in actuals, and then further extending out, at the end of the plan, a month, a quarter, whatever it is. So we can definitely accommodate that, and it's actually very easily done because, number one, you can create scenarios very quickly and very powerfully. I mean, what I had talked about during the demonstration is we just used our 2010 budget scenario as the basis for our 2010 forecast scenario and just seeded it. And number two, you don't have to worry about the number of scenarios that you create. It's completely unlimited, as with all the other data within host analytics. So that's kind of the long roundabout answer to that question. It's a definite yeah.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Well, we've got about 1 minute left here, so let's go ahead and draw this down. First off, a great thanks to Rob Frasconi, Solution Consultant, Host Analytics. That was a great demo and walkthrough, and really appreciate your time this morning, Rob.
Thank you.
Next up, just a couple quick items. You will be prompted to take a short survey once this webinar concludes. We greatly appreciate your feedback regarding this event, so please let us know. We always want to do better the next time, or if you liked it, let us know that you liked it and what you liked. Then we'll do more of that the next time. Also, we make it very easy if you want to connect directly with Rob. just with a click of a mouse. We'll be happy to help you make that connection, and he or other folks at Host Analytics can answer any of your questions about the platform, of course. Finally, thanks again to Host Analytics for helping us put this event on, and we appreciate the time and attention, of course, of everyone who was on the event this morning. So with that, we will bid you good day. We hope to see you again at Performative Online or at another event. And have a great week, everyone. Take care.